So happy to have Carl Ice with us today. He and I have been working back and forth for a couple of 3 months, I think, ever since last time after a basketball game, sort of trapped him into this.
He's relentless.
Yeah. But before I introduce Carl, I want to introduce the gentleman that came with him today. That's Zach Anderson down there, and he's in charge of communications with BNSF. Been with the company for 10 years. So let's give him a round of applause. Carl Ice was appointed to his current position as President and CEO of BNSF on January 1st of 2014. Previously, he served as President and Chief Executive Officer since November 1st, 2010, with responsibility for day-to-day operations of the company, helping to drive BNSF's strategies for safety, service, growth, efficiency, and technology. Carl began his career in the railroad industry with Santa Fe Railway in the Industrial Engineering Department in 1979. He later held positions in operations, finance, and information systems. In 1992, Ice was named Vice President of Administration. He became Vice President, Carload Business Unit in January of '94 and was named Vice President Executive in July of the same year. In January of 1996, Carl was appointed Vice President and Chief Mechanical Officer. He became Vice President Operations North in January of '99, promoted to Senior Vice President Operations in June of 1999. He has a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from Kansas State University. He has several community involvements, current and past, including Association of American Railroads Board of Directors Chairman, Cotton Bowl Athletic Association Board of Directors Vice Chairman, Kansas State University Foundation Board of Directors, and Trustee of Kansas State University. The Salvation Army Advisory Board in Dallas-Fort Worth Chairman, and SMU Lyle School of Engineering Executive Board, and is responsible for supporting KSU, as you well know, in many, many ways. Carl and his wife Mary have 2 grown children and live in Westlake, Texas. BNSF Railway is one of the North America's leading freight transportation companies, operating in 32,500 miles of track in 28 states and 3 Canadian provinces. BNSF is one of the top transporters of consumer goods, grain, agricultural products, low sulfur coal, and industrial goods such as petroleum, chemicals, housing materials, food and beverages. BNSF and its employees have developed one of the most technologically advanced and efficient railroads in the industry. Ladies and gentlemen and fellow Rotarians, Carl Ice.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks for the kind introduction. Although reading that last part took part of my remarks. Well, thank you all so much for having us here today. We appreciate it a great deal, and thank you for your hospitality for lunch as well. When I accepted when Dale was so relentless, there was at least 3 reasons that I did that. One, the Rotary is a very impressive group. You accomplished many things. The principles of integrity, of providing service, truth, benefit to all are inspiring. And the things that Steve talked about it being inspiring as well. And especially in today's world, those really resonate. So I want to be here to see all that, and I appreciate getting to see your meeting so far. Now, secondly, I see lots of familiar faces. You know Manhattan's a special place for our family, so we're certainly glad to be here for that. Then lastly, though, I'm with BNSF Railway. Kansas is a very important place to BNSF Railway. It's intertwined with our history. Back in 1857, Cyrus K. Holliday, as he founded Topeka, also founded the Santa Fe Railway. And that forever then intertwined Kansas and all what is our railroad today, to where it's a vital part of our network, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes, but that's certainly then a big reason that we wanted to be here. You know, thinking about that history, this morning we had a chance to actually be over in Topeka, and if you may know, Topeka's a few allies in their downtown, and they're doing pocket parks along Kansas Avenue, and they were kind enough to work with us to do one that celebrates Santa Fe. So there's a picture of Cyrus K. Holliday looking toward, a statue of Cyrus K. Holliday looking towards the Capitol, and there's a scale replica locomotive there. So if you want to see a locomotive up close, you can see one there. I know the guys in the shops were careful to make sure that they were in 1/1000th of an inch of tolerance, making sure they were probably indestructible. So yeah, just an example of how we're all so intertwined and why we're glad to be here. Now, the plan for the day is I've got about 30 minutes of time, and was told I can use it however I want. The way I like to do that is to answer questions. And that's also got 3 reasons. One, it gives me the best chance to talk about what you want to talk about with the wide ranging group, the kind of group that you are. That's important. Secondly, I think that's what people expect, especially in today's world, the chance to have a dialogue. And I expect someone to stay and talk to them for 30 minutes. But then lastly, it's just more fun. So that's what we'll do. And as we think about how this went, it'll have a lot to do with the questions. So we'll look forward to those. But probably makes some sense to set just a little bit of context before we do that. So to talk for a moment about the rail industry, about BNSF, and then about us in Kansas. So the rail industry has been around for a really, really, really long time. Our company, for instance, is more than 150 years old. From our perspective, we do things that are very vital for our nation, for our commerce, for our way of life. And for instance, railroads move 40% of the freight that moves in between cities are moved on railroads. And so as railroaders, that's one of the reasons I think we all are attracted to being railroaders and stay. Once you're a railroader, you kind of always stay as a railroader. It's because we're doing things we believe are important, and I think that's very, very attractive to us. The second reason we do it is because trains are fun, right? You've got those trains, don't they? All right, now come on.
I love it.
Those trains, don't they? All right. So and then in terms of BNSF, and our part of that, we do the same sorts of things. We move about 10 million loads of one sort or another a year. That's right, 10 million. A couple 100,000 many weeks of the year, or at least close to that. And that could be anything. And so again, that I think demonstrates the sorts of things we do. Now, we do those things, first and foremost, we expect to do them safely. That's the most important thing we do. And then secondly, we do them efficiently. So first in terms of safety, we've made great progress in safety. We're in advancing our safety culture. We've done that in large part with having a culture that's not just that we expect compliance, but also a culture of commitment. In other words, people take responsibility for their own safety and for the safety of their coworkers. And we really have made great progress on that with a thing we call approaching others about safety. Arming people on the one hand to see when they need to have an interaction, be prepared to take it, sometimes make it, sometimes the hardest part, deliver it in a way that's usable, and then have people hear it in a way they can also act. But maybe even the greater thing about all that is when you say you're going to do something like that, you tell an organization, here's what we're going to do, we're all going to do this together, then that gives the whole organization a chance to see it happen. And then the first time it's hard, second time it's not as hard, and eventually it's your expectations. And as it's your expectations, then when people are interacting, they're no longer thinking, why is he saying something to me? But instead they're thinking about what got said. And that's helped drive tremendous gains for us in safety. Now I say that with a heavy heart today because we had a terrible tragedy on Tuesday. We had 2 trains that collided a little bit east of Amarillo. They were at a high rate of speed. The one train was going about 66 miles an hour and the other almost 40, so over 100 miles combined. We've certainly lost 2 crew members. We found them yesterday. We're still not broadly talking about the names for their privacy, or I would mention their names specifically out of respect. We have 1 other crew member we haven't found yet. Of course, as more time goes by, that gets more and more grim. So I don't say that to put a pall on today, but I can't talk about safety without thinking about that happening. Now, we know when we realize our vision of eliminating accidents and injuries on our railroad and eliminating the loss of life on our railroad, that'll be the greatest positive impact we've ever had. But short of that, when things like this happen, then it weighs upon all of us. So again, I feel like I need to mention that. And then, if we may, I would like to pause for a moment and think about it, and then also give me a chance to transition. So a moment of silence, if you would, please. Okay, so trying to move from that. so we do also do things very efficiently. That's part of the reason that we can do the things that we do. And so there's all kinds of fun little stats about that we could throw out. One of them is when we run one of our large, what we call a stack train, which is containers that are on top of each other. That's a stack train. We're not that imaginative. That can be up to 12,000 feet long. That takes somewhere around 200, 250, 300, sometimes even 400 similar amounts of trucks off the highway, which is one of the benefits of railroad. And we, of course, do the maintenance of our infrastructure ourselves. We own it ourselves. We do it ourselves. So it's not something the public has to figure out or fund or anything like that. We also handle a ton of freight, 500 miles on 1 gallon of diesel fuel.
Wow.
Ton of freight, 500 miles on 1 gallon of diesel fuel. Well, that's not exactly miles per gallon, but it's pretty close. And so you can see that, see those efficiencies. And so again, those kind of things are part of the strength of what we all have start with as railroaders, a long history, and then the things we can build on from there. Now, as I mentioned, BNSF handles about 10 million units a year. About 40% of those go through Kansas. So as we think about Kansas and its impact, that's part of why Kansas is so important to us. We do have those 32,500 miles we operated that Dale mentioned a moment ago in 28 states. Right now we have about 42,000 employees. 3,500 of them are in Kansas. We have, I think, about 4,000 miles of railroad in Kansas and 8 major yards somewhere around the state. So a big part of how we contribute, and that's some of what we talked about Cyrus a few minutes ago. That's some of what Cyrus saw as he founded one of our predecessor railroads a long time ago. Now, often one of the things that comes up is what kind of stuff we handle. Really, it's almost everything. Our largest business unit is we call consumer products. Part of that is domestic intermodal, and that would be mainly working with trucking companies. Things like J.B. Hunt or Schneider or Swift or somebody like that, handling the move to and from our intermodal ramps, like the new one we opened in Gardner, south of Kansas City a couple of years ago. And then we haul it across the country, and then they do the final delivery. That's great. That lets us do what we do well. That gives them a chance to do what they do well. Gives their drivers really a better lifestyle because they're making short trips instead of being gone for a month. Great for the environment because they get the railroad benefits, and then again the whole discussion I just sort of made about the highway, and that amplifies the importance of how we fit in the whole supply chain. If we think about something that comes from China, like our smartphone or whatever, that gets handled in a steamship container, gets to a port, gets on a train, maybe at the port, goes across country, then gets delivered by a truck, and that's really how the global economy works, and we're proud of our parts of that. So that's the second big part of our business, the international intermodal. Then agricultural business is a large one for us, has been for a long time. Warren Buffett stories are always good. There may be some Warren Buffett questions. A couple years ago at the annual meeting, the theme was 50 years of profitable partnership, and one of the questions that a panel was asking Warren and Charlie, who's partner Charlie Munger, what it's going to be like 50 years from now. Of course, Warren made a few jokes about that before he answered. But then they asked, what is the biggest commodity you're going to handle 50 years from now? And he said, grain. And that's because that's something we've handled for a long time, something we're going to continue to grow. The country farmers get better every day, as you know, and we remain very competitive as a nation around the world. So that's one of our strong business units. That includes things like fertilizer as well as ethanol. Our coal business, that's a business that's under attack. It is still a significant part of our business. And then lastly, our industrial products unit, and that's really everything from food to concrete, from beverages to oil or chemicals. But we track 22 segments, and so we're a good kaleidoscope, I believe, of the U.S. economy. And as you probably know, it's not that strong right now. And that's another question we often get asked. Anything that's on the consumer side is okay because consumer spending is still hanging in, but industrial-based things are really very slow. In large part, that's because commodities prices are low. Probably all know that. That means they're not moving as much as they might. And then the strength of the dollar, although usually it's fun to say the dollar's strong, when it comes to exports, as you all know, it doesn't help. So if agricultural prices are already low, and then the relative cost of buying something in the US dollar compared to, say, the Brazilian real, then that makes it even more difficult. And so that's been one of the overhangs, and we're exposed to commodity prices in our agricultural business, in our coal business, and now in our energy business as well, and the associated. So all that's had us off a little bit, and that's significant because we've got a number of people furloughed. We have thousands of people furloughed around the railroad. We expected to be much busier than we are. Things in today's world change fast and by a lot. And so that's one of the things we're working diligently on, is to do everything we can to win more business, to get people back to work, and as soon as we can. And on the sides of that, anything we can do, like adjusting their vacation works or training and so forth, we do that all as well. Now, I don't say that because I want anybody to feel sorry for old BNSF. We're doing fine. And we'll continue to do fine. And our returns are strong. But most of all, we are confident in the future. That's one of our values. Proud of our heritage, confident in our future. And so we're investing strongly in our railroads from 2001 through 2015. We've reinvested in our railroad $50 billion. In the last 3, it's about $15 billion. I don't tell you that to brag about spending a lot of money, because that's nothing to brag about. You all know that as humble Kansans, but it does demonstrate our commitment to having a strong railroad and our commitment to having our customers grow. And that's the way we approach our railroads. We don't try to pick which customers are going to get to be winners, which customers get to move. We don't auction off our tight capacity. We grow for all of our customers. We invest to handle their business. And every time that growth lets us build in our railroad and expand our railroad, that means our railroad is forever better. And it's going to be around a really, really, really long time. So the fact it's forever better is really of significance. So we look to the future, confident, as we see population growth and see everything that means about business movement and so forth, and drawing on our strengths. But at the same time, there are challenges, and we know we need to face them. So one of the challenges right now is the difficulty when we're spending all that money to work with public policymakers to get permits. So, not that permitting is bad. Permitting is a good thing. Companies need to do the right thing. They need to make sure we're doing the right things for the environment. But when the permitting process becomes something that can kill something because it takes so long, or that people can just not want something to happen and slow it down or stop it, that's when it becomes difficult. And we have many places around the railroad that we've seen that happen. We just lost a permit we've worked on for 10 years that was going to have a facility that was near Southern California, near the docks in Southern California, was going to keep trucks from having to go up the highway to our existing facility, millions of truck miles a year. It was going to be on the greenest facility there ever would be, electric cranes lifting off and on, for instance. We were going to control the drays around the facility. We were going to be low emissions in the facility. And not saying anything bad about my trucking friends, we were on top of a truck facility. And that all sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Well, we lost the permit because we wasn't thought about Bill Bodley enough, and that's the disturbing trend, is what the judge said, is you can't just think about your facility, you have to think about all your facilities, you have to think about your competitor's facility. Now, how do you do that? And so until that's done, then you don't get the permit. So that means that everybody in the area has lost, because we won't have that new facility. The trucks will still somehow move, freight moves and so forth, but this great facility very likely won't be built. And so that's a concern we all have as we think about how we function with public policymakers. So again, it's not another thing to bring up to say we should despair. There's lots of ways we can work around it, but that's why groups of people like you all are important, that we recognize the things we do, and we then work together for how, again, what is one of your principles, benefits to all, is not be centrally focused about, I don't want something to go by my house. Of course, we need to do that right, like I just described that facility. But if that means we have a national transportation policy that we can move goods safely and effectively for everybody, then we also need to balance all of that. So again, if you take those things all together, we're proud to be railroaders. We're proud of BNSF. We're proud of being part of Berkshire Hathaway. We look to our future with confidence. So with that, I'll answer any questions you might have. That was longer than I thought it was going to be fast. Yes, sir. Very back.
I'm one of your rail aficionados.
Wonderful.
But I ride Amtrak everywhere.
Okay.
I'm concerned about the piece of track that goes from Newton, Kansas to the western part of Colorado. I'm interested in, I know you have a responsibility there somewhat, because that rail has been considered unable to handle speed, and the Kansas has not been interested in doing anything about it at all. You wanted to have something going together with both, but you aren't getting it, or at least that's the last information I had, which may be 2 or 3 years old. Comment on that just a little bit about why that piece of track is going for such slow rates and not being improved.
Okay, well, nice easy question to warm up with. All right, so you're right, that's the track that runs what we call 3 and 4, or sometimes the Southwest Limited. Now first, let me say, sometimes people say when they hear about this, they say things like, somebody needs to fix the track, or the track's in bad shape, or the track's broken. None of that's the case. The track, I rode over there on that railroad 2 weeks ago. And so it is perfectly safe track, it runs perfectly appropriately. There's a difference between safety and ride quality and speed, as you mentioned. Now, the circumstances are that Amtrak does run over us. That was established decades ago with the Passenger Act that was passed in the late 60s, early 70s. And it's our responsibility to then keep the utility of that line as it is, and they run over us, and they give us a modicum of compensation for that. And over time, what's happened is that railroad has railroad generally is continuous welded rail. So you take these, my answers are always long, I apologize. You take these quarter-mile segments, you take them out of the railroad, you put them in the railroad, the rail gangs come along, they weld them up, so literally you wind up with one piece of rail from Chicago to LA. That's how you get a beautiful ride. In the old days, they were bolted, so you took those same segments, you took bars, laid them in either side, put bolts through them, tightened them up. I've been doing this a long time, so I can remember that we used to do that. Well, they can never be so thick together, that's a big hit. If you're used to hear a train go clackety, 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 clack, that's hitting the joints. And so that rail was jointed rail. It was not something that we need for our freight business, and so it's not appropriate to run at 90 miles an hour on that. And so that's why the traffic was slowed down. Now Amtrak did adjust their schedule. Their schedule didn't really change very much, I say as an aside. But then lastly, I would say actually there is work going on it. We continue to maintain it as we should, but also in terms of the Tiger and the FAST grants, we're in our 6th tranche of those that the federal government has actually given funds towards that, where that rail is being relayed. And we had made commitments as that happened that we would go in and do tie and ballast work at the same time. Everywhere the rail's been relayed, the speed has been raised. So now it isn't going to go 70 miles an hour all the way across, because some of the places we do not yet have grants for, and some of those are in place right now. So it is a good railroad, and people are working on fixing it, and we do take good care of it. Yes, sir.
As you're upgrading your railroad lines, I noticed that there's a lot of concrete ties now. Are you finding those are better or worse than what you have?
Again, the K-State Civil Engineering Department helps us with that, by the way.
My daughter was part of that.
Thank you. Concrete is definitely better in many ways. It is harder. The distance between 2 rails is called the gauge. It helps hold gauge longer, and it lasts longer. Now, with more strength comes that it's more brittle, so sometimes that's an issue that if it gets hit, it breaks and so forth. And all the work has to be done to have to make sure that everything, the reinforcing bars are the right tension and clean, all those things. So we do get great benefit from those. However, the interaction of concrete and wood is what most of our ties are, doesn't work well. You can't, because they're different characteristics, you can't intermix them. So typically when we go on with concrete, we fix a whole segment, we change a whole segment of track. And I said fix. All right, somebody else that said that, I've been upset. When we go in and maintain the track, we replace some ties. If we made them all concrete, then we would replace a whole bunch of ties and rails prematurely, and we don't do that. So in our long segments of routes that we don't have, it's just straight track, what we call tangent track, we typically leave that as wood. We've converted many of our curves with concrete, because then they're holding the elevation and all that better. So any curve that's 2 degrees or more is very likely concrete. And you don't have that phenomenon of intermixing on new construction, so all new construction is concrete. So if you're driving alongside a railroad, running through Kiowa or something like that, you see one track that's concrete, one wood, that's because the other got built and they had concrete in it. And they don't stay that way for a long time, until we can't use wood anymore. Yes, sir.
Thank you for all you do for K-State, and thanks for what BNSF does for public television in support of the NewsHour, I believe. I wondered what BNSF gets out of that. What is it a part of a strategy?
Well, first of all, you said thank you, so I should say you're welcome. You're welcome on both fronts. Is it part of a strategy? I guess. I mean, because we do think it's important that people know what we do. And as I was referencing earlier, what people think about companies are what people they know tell them, be their friends, their neighbors, their relatives. I mean, I can come give a talk, and that means a little bit. But if somebody that knows something about BNSF, somebody's friend, and they say it's a good company, that helps. So there's a little bit of that, but basically that's not why we do it. We do things like that because we think they're the right thing to do, and you do what's the right thing to do, and you don't do it because you're going to get something. Although one of the great things about life is when you do things for the right thing, sometimes you do get good things from that, if nothing else from fulfillment. So that's why we do all that. We have something else we do where when we have our employees that are Army reservists, I should say, and they deploy, we give them make-whole pay. That took us like seconds to decide, but years ago. It shocked me to find out, we have employees that would email me and say, it's so wonderful you do that. It shocked me to find out most companies didn't do that. So we were somewhere once presenting to this military group, and they said, well, how'd you decide? What rate of return does that have? So I don't know how clue what rate of return it has. We don't have rates of return on things like that. Sometimes you do things because they're the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I work with young adults who are interested in reducing carbon emissions, and they're really excited when they learn how efficient rail transportation is. But what are you doing to go zero carbon emissions in rail transportation? Is that going to be a part of the future?
Well, future's a long time, right? So,
but I mean, are you actually doing research right now to try to make that happen?
Not all the way to carbonless. I couldn't tell you that. Now, every time we get more fuel efficient, that reduces carbon.
Right.
We are more carbon friendly because of that. Anything that involves fuel is one of our initiatives we do. We range from as simple as initiatives, if you're not using the locomotive, turn it off, all the way to we tested a hydrogen fuel cell over in the Speedy Shops, actually. And we proved that would work. Now, what we couldn't do was generate hydrogen that was less energy than it took to generate the hydrogen. So that's out in the future. Someday somebody will figure out how to make that a continuous loop, and it could happen. So we make advances in that, and certainly everything that moves with the railroad is more environmentally friendly. But it does take some energy to move. A freight train has tens of thousands of tons of freight on it. It takes some kind of energy to move that. But railroad, our environmental statement's fairly short. Railroads are good for the environment. So we're definitely for that. Yes, sir.
Kind of a similar question. T-Boone Pickens and others have talked about trying to move freight lines to natural gas. Are there any alternative fuels that are feasible?
Again, that whole range of things we look at. So by definition, we do some bio because almost all fuel you can buy both places. You get that. We tested that to long extremes. We are actually in the midst of a natural gas project. To make sure that we understand that. We think it's important we understand how that might work, because again, fuel is a big amount of asset and resource that we use. Right now, it doesn't come close to messing one out. As diesel's kind of got, what matters is the spread. As diesel's gotten cheaper, it's a billions and billions of dollars investment. But we're still testing it because we think we need to understand. Regulations, as always, are important there, though, and there's at least 3 regulatory fronts that we have to be careful about. One is safety, and we will not do it if it's not safe. I'll just say that plainly. But sometimes safety regulations get written that have further consequences than that, so we've got to make sure how that works. Secondly, there are environmental regulations. Natural gas, as you probably know, burns cleaner, and that's the way you preface the question. And so it will make standards, but because it's cleaner, if we had to do half as much emission or something like that, that could be a problem. Most of all, well, not most of all, those are both important. Additionally, the economic regulation is important. Our economic regulation at the Surface Transportation Board is based on operating costs. And so if what were to happen is we spend billions to lower operating costs in fuel, and we couldn't recover any of that, that would be bad. Now, we're good at sharing. I always say we get a plus on our report card of sharing with customers. But we've got to have some vehicle to recover our investment. And so that's something else that has to be sorted out before it can really be done. And some people say, well, just look backwards and then we'll compensate you for that. But you know, billions of dollar investment, that's risky because you don't know what the spread is. It doesn't work to look backwards because you want it to work. Or if it does work, you need returns that represent the risk associated with that. So we're testing, we'll keep testing it. We have 2 sets of locomotives, we do that. It's complicated, as you could guess. Not only does the engine have to burn burn natural gas. Since it's gas, it's not as dense, so we have to have a carrying conveyance, so that's got to be liquefied or compressed, so that's an invention too. Then it's got to move across the couplers to get to the locomotive, that's an invention. Then you have to have the facilities liquefy it. So we're studying all those things. Yes?
Do you have a Warren Buffett story?
Oh, sure. You want to give me a category? Or